The thought that 18 months later, or almost 2 years later, there would still be COVID around and such restrictions, I still, sitting here today, find that quite amazing.
I have a bit of an aversion to this idea of back to normal.
There will be a new normal and there will be a new way of living and, just simple things, QR codes and certificates and things like that.
For many of us who've endured lockdowns over the past 6 months, the simple act of going out for a coffee or even a meal can still feel pretty exciting and even a bit unusual. As we approach an adult vaccination rate of 90% nationally, there are hopes that these simple freedoms will be here to stay.
Hi, I'm Kate Galbraith. I am a former flight attendant that was affected during the lockdown and the border closures. We moved from Melbourne after the long lockdown to Sydney and then entered another very long lockdown as well. So hopefully now we're out the end of it. As life starts to settle down, that's when, you take your foot off the gas and go, oh, okay, wow, that was a pretty full-on 12 months. But like I said before, we're going to be okay. Interesting. I still feel raw, as you call it. It's even now with being able to open up, I'm still very cautious. I think I am quite scarred from being in Melbourne and how everything went down there, and it does worry me still and does scare me. There is something in the back of my mind that still says, could this happen again? One of the main differences between Sydney and Melbourne was in Melbourne I wasn't working, I was still on maternity leave, and so I had Heidi at home with me day in and day out, whereas the Sydney lockdown I actually had employment, which took away from the mundane day-to-day tasks. Thankfully, Heidi could stay in daycare, but it was almost a role reversal where my husband this time around wasn't able to work, but I was. So everything that I kind of felt and experienced to a degree in Melbourne, he actually felt in Sydney. So she's turning 3 in December and, essentially most of her life has been in some sort of lockdown. This Sydney lockdown, she understands a lot more, and so we've actually been able to talk to her. We called it the spicy cough to her. So when it came to things like, even if we were walking through the train station and trying not to touch things and trying to be extremely hygienic and things like that, she's like, "Oh, Mum, is the spicy cough gone yet? Why can't I see my friends? Why can't we go and see our family and our cousins?" So she was able to articulate what was going on, whereas in Melbourne, she was still a lot younger. It will be fascinating as she grows older to see what she does remember. I tried really hard in Melbourne to try and keep some sort of diary or a timeline for her. So to let her know she did live through it and, she has come out okay, and we're very lucky to have stayed healthy so far. It's something that we debate quite a lot. I obviously don't want her to get sick. I feel that for her only turning 3 very soon, it's not necessary. I could be wrong in saying that, but I don't want her to get sick. So it's that whole double-edged sword. For 2-3-year-olds, I'm not sure just yet. The jury's still out on that one for me. So many hopes. I remember last time I didn't feel that I could dream or plan or hope for anything, but now I do have a bit of fire back in my belly. I hope that we never, ever experience anything like this again. I hope that Australia can get back to what it was, and that the world, yes, it has changed, and there will be a new normal and there will be a new way of living, and just simple things, QR codes and certificates and things like that, but they will just become part of the new day-to-day life. So I hope that everyone does embrace that, and I hope everyone just gets on with it. We're all in this together. We're not. I feel that New South Wales and Victoria have been hit the hardest, but I feel that they're also the ones that have just tried to move forward and get on with things like that as well. So I personally worry for Queensland and WA when they do open up. So I think that once they do open and the floodgates open, shall we say, that, you know, they don't go back into lockdown. If we are going to open up together and be one again.
Well, I'm Madge Fleming and I live in Denmark in Western Australia, and I'm a retired teacher.
And I'm Jacques Fleming. I live with Madge in Denmark, of course. I'm a civil engineer, retired. The uncertainty of the whole thing is something that hangs over everybody's head. And I think people really got to accept that these are changes that you can't do much about.
And that is the new normal, isn't it? That you've got to be ready to change your plans in an instant. Well, I think 6 months ago, we probably imagined that we would be slightly further on in the aspect of international travel than we are. And I can say that with a degree of assurity because we booked a trip to New Zealand, which has been cancelled. So I think in that regard, I probably was more optimistic. But that doesn't mean to say that I don't think Western Australia being isolated is a bad thing. In the circumstances, it's been beneficial.
Here in Western Australia, we've had, I think, 9 deaths. Over in Victoria, they've had over 900. That's a ratio of 100 to 1. So when you reflect on things like that, and you don't see a lot of that on the TV for some reason, we see more about people being inoculated or what the latest is with Pfizer or one of the other drugs that they're using. We're both vaccinated, our kids are vaccinated, our grandchildren are now getting vaccinated. So we agree with all of that. We think that anyone who says no to vaccination has got rocks in their head.
I think it's a good thing, and I'm sure a lot of people disagree with me, but if that's what's necessary to keep the population safe, then I think 100% go for it. Well, personally, I'd be very happy to see that happen when it's 90%. And I think the economy needs that. And I think just people have that feeling when they're locked up that they want to get out.
It wouldn't worry me too much if it was opened later. If it was opened earlier, then I would be a little bit more apprehensive. I think that they've struck it at 90%, and I think that's a good figure.
We still have our cruise to complete, the Antarctic one that we started off in March 2020. So that was to have taken place this October. And so it's all booked again for October 2022. But we look forward to 2022 as to be an exciting year and to do some of the things that we had hoped to do this year. I still find it amazing that what's happened in the last 18 months. And when we were on that ship in Antarctica, the thought that 18 months later there would still be COVID around and such restrictions, I still, sitting here today, find that quite amazing.
I'm Jacques, I'm the owner of the Billabong Roadhouse, have been since 2007, and we pretty much do everything here. Been quite hard at times, and I guess it's just in times like this you just got to keep your integrity up and keep going forward. Get up in the morning, have breakfast and go. Keep a smile on your face, that's all you can do. My 2021 has been quite chaotic, and I think just like everybody else in the industry, it's been a real roller coaster ride with, you know, massive amounts of people travelling north as they can't go overseas or over east. So we've seen a very big population of people come this way that we haven't seen before. We've had to change our system of food. We've had to simplify our food in many ways, but we still, you know, pushing as much as we can to get, you know, a good fresh product out every day. You know, make sure that our customers are happy with the food, but make it a little bit more simplistic for the kitchen to actually produce it. The staff scenario hasn't changed. If anything, I think it's probably going to get a bit tougher as it goes on, and everyone is really vying for staff, and it's a tough job. It still is very tough to find staff. they're just like a lot of backpackers, they will stay for 3 months and move on. So it's a constant sort of changeover of staff, constant training. Oh, the roadhouse workers, I mean, we all had to be vaccinated by a certain date, and we all know this. It's going to be interesting what the flow on will be. I mean, I guess people are to and fro as far as whether they want to take the vaccine or not. And they have the choice, but they don't really have the choice because eventually everything will be covered by that mandate. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting story. We've had a couple that have gone, oh no, I don't want to, and it's like, well, it's your choice. I mean, it's totally up to you, but I'm telling you that this is how it's going to be. So there's not much that you can do about it. Their choice is to go, well, I don't want to, and walk away, which is fine. Not yet. I hope not. I hope it's something that's just going to flow on and it's going to work well. But it does, without a doubt, put a lot more pressure on the hospitality industry. I mean, it's under pressure now to perform under huge numbers, but you throw in this card of, having everybody blanket vaccinated. The outcome of that undoubtedly will put more pressure on the hospitality industry, simple. Borders opening up would be very interesting now that people have actually had a bit of a scope of the Northwest. So I dare say our business would have increased and stay that way because, a lot of people came up this way and actually saw something that they'd never seen before. Hopes, that's all we got. If you've got hope on your side, then I think everything will be right. And look, WA crew are a pretty good crew. I think we're hopeful that everything will work out fine and everybody will do the right thing and everything will be fine in 2022, 23.
My name is Angela. I am an international student from China. You still have this thing at the back of your mind thinking, what if we go into another lockdown? What if there's another period of COVID rolling back? And that little voice is the source of the anxiety that's being introduced to our mindset. The last 6 months has been a smooth sailing, to be honest. Pretty lucky to be in South Australia, where generally we have been impacted a lot less by COVID than other states. In terms of vaccination, I have to say that I'm still contemplating, mainly because after getting more information on vaccination and considering my own medical history, I do get allergy quite easily from medicine in general. So I am thinking of potentially booking an appointment with my GP to talk about it before I obviously decided to just go get a jab or not. But I do recognize the importance of vaccination for people who can be vaccinated because we can keep our society safe. To be honest, I was quite excited when I heard about the initial news with the borders opening. I remember I was on a hike with my friends, and all of us stopped, took out our phones, and started looking at the news articles. But very quickly, the excitement started dying down because we started to realize that it really wasn't targeted towards the international population. It was more for the Australian citizens as well as the permanent residents. While obviously we understand that choice, still we feel a little disappointed that we wasn't included in that initial rollout of border opening. I would hope I would be able to see my family hopefully April or May next year, being very hopeful. Given that borders open in November and the vaccination rates is steadily rising, I think April or May should be possible. I think definitely we will see a lot more international students coming back to Australia once the borders are open. Currently, just from my experience, some of my friends are still stranded in China doing online degrees and unable to finish a degree because they have that practical component that has to be completed. At least for those people, I know they'll be dying to come back to Australia to finish that degree and to obviously be on campus and have that face-to-face experience again. The next 6 months might be really crucial in terms of the pandemic because we are opening the borders for the first time in almost 2 years, I think. And like SA Health predicted, if I remember correctly with the model, the case number would definitely surge once South Australia opens its border. Whether we can get it to become manageable so we can continue that open border and that post-COVID lifestyle that we would much prefer with that face-to-face interaction. It's definitely important for us to be, again, mindful with hygiene and wearing masks and etc. to be able to maintain that hope that people have. I am remaining hopeful. It seems like we are step by step, baby steply, going out from the worst situation. And I think with the experience that we have in the past 2 years with managing this virus, we would be able to progress in the future and slowly rise from this shadow from the COVID-19 pandemic.
Hi, I'm Zoe. I'm a mother of 4, a wife, a registered nurse, and I live in Port Lincoln, South Australia. COVID has affected everyday life working in the hospital dramatically still. Socially, we've been able to return to a pretty much normal life in South Australia. We've still been able to go out, we've still been able to do things. Work-wise, incredibly busy. Our health system is pretty stretched for some reason already. Since the pandemic began, the hospital has looked at ways to decrease the risk of COVID spreading, I suppose. So trying to decrease length of stay, especially for people coming in to have their babies. So they really try to get them out as soon as possible and away from potential exposure. Unfortunately, I'm really concerned about how there can be issues with delays in NDIS or placing aged care people in their homes, and the hospital seems to be the fallback for that. So we have a lot of people there that we call long stays that are really just displaced from other areas. I'm worried about how we're going to home all of those vulnerable people, considering that we're opening the border soon and that COVID's going to be here before we know it. It's been a real challenge, the whole anti-vax movement, from seeing friends on social media to listening to people talk about it at football. It's caused a lot of stress and trauma. I can see people losing themselves in fear and worry, and I think trying to gain some kind of control. And I am also very concerned about the health risks that are posed to these people, knowing and understanding the science. I really wish everyone invested in studying the vaccine, which we do know how it works, would consider studying what COVID does and the potential risks that it's going to face to them. I've started studying my CHIA course, which is to make me a certified health informatician Australasia. It's a bit of a mouthful, but I wanted to learn more about pandemics and be in a position to understand better next time what we could do. So I suppose I've taken what worried me to try to learn and understand more about it so that I can make more of a difference for public health in our community. We've had like a really busy, fun, social October. I'm actually exhausted. We've had my father's annual music festival where all the local musos play for free. It was really fun to see everyone just relax and forget what's going on around the world. Music is an absolute outlet for our family. It's a welcome distraction from the real world. Yeah, music's everything to us. I'm worried. I think it's going to be head down, bum up in the short term. I am worried about people that are going to die and how it is going to affect our community. I do hope that people continue to check in and we can contact trace and minimise any clusters that might form, and that we don't actually have any more lockdowns. If it were to get out of control, then they would have no choice but to lock down, because if we don't have beds to treat people, what else can we do? I'm a bit nervous about running out of beds when we're already pretty under pressure most days. Having 4 daughters, 2 that can be vaccinated and 2 that can't, I'm not going to feel reassured until they can all be vaccinated, but I'm going to be working on the front line with exposure, so that makes me a little bit nervous, but I'll live in the granny flat if we need to.
I'm Kylie Denham from Port Macquarie. But I think in 6 months' time, it's not going to be done. It's not going to be done for a while. There's still going to be some restrictions, and we're not going to be back to normal for a long while yet. Since the last episode of New Normal, my life has been pretty much the same. Still working at the same place. It has got very busy at work though, due to the lockdowns and restrictions and constant changes. It's made life very busy there. Being in travel and doing destinations that people still could travel to meant that once lockdowns hit, we had to be cancelling and rebooking so many people. And whenever the roadmap changes or the boundaries change or the restrictions move, that then is another wave of changes that we have to deal with. So it's still going, even this week with the couple of changes that have happened. It's like, okay, here comes the 13th wave of dealing with changes. From all reports, it sounds like if you don't have that vaccine, that if you do catch the virus, it's going to affect you a lot more than if you don't. So to me, I'd prefer to have a mild case if and when I do contract COVID instead of, having a full-blown illness from it. I think being able to do things at a drop of a hat definitely seems like you've got to plan life a little bit more. You get to a shop front and you've got to stop and juggle getting the children, scanning your QR code, showing your vaccine certificate. So it seems like getting into a shop can be a little bit of a to-do at the moment. My hopes are to be able to take an international trip again in the near future, to be able to enjoy that and to take the kids overseas. I guess the fears are because my kids are so young that they aren't able to have the vaccination as yet. So I do fear that they might contract COVID at some point and get quite ill. 6 months' time in my life, I think things hopefully will be pretty similar. The boys are loving being at daycare and being at preschool. Matt's enjoying his job. I'm enjoying my job. So hopefully everything will be pretty similar in 6 months' time.
My name is Bethany and I'm in Sydney.
If I were to ask myself one question, I guess it would be,
are you getting some rest? I think that would be the number one question.
No. I feel like I'm a different person from when that happened. I was moving all the time, I felt completely scattered, and then lockdown was announced in Sydney. And just personally, given my circumstances, it was almost like a gift. It was the chance to stop and to reimagine. I have a bit of an aversion to this idea of back to normal. I think I'd rather go forward to reimagined, and so I had that space to sort of contemplate and dream and being from the country, I think it was just such a gift. I'm here in Bondi and was able to walk near the water and one of the most beautiful places in the world every day, and that really helped me keep sane. So at the time of the last interview, I was still moving every 3 or 4 days with my rolling suitcase. It was funny to see myself literally on the move with a suitcase. It was exhausting. And then just after that, I landed myself a place to stay. And little did I know that this 4-month lockdown was about to occur. I just felt so grateful that I had a place that I could sort of call my own, and the fact that it was close enough to walk to some of the most beautiful beaches in the world was a huge gift. And I was able to just go, okay, let's separate myself from how everyone else feels and how do I feel? And I felt great. So that was my experience of lockdown. I was working with a theatre company called Milk Crate, and we were about to open a show, literally the first week of lockdown. Our show was meant to open. So we lost that show, and navigating that with the community was, it was a shame. All you have to know is your direction. In terms of being able to perform or work together in the space, theatre is all about gathering people, but amazingly, because I'm a teaching artist as well, I've been working with the National Institute of Dramatic Arts, their open program, so working with NIDA online was amazing, and I felt like there was this sense of expansion in a time of limitation. I was given these opportunities to teach not just with kids in Sydney or young people across Australia, but actually internationally with adults as well. So I just felt like my career has almost like taken this little step up in this time, which is very unexpected.
Right, this time breathing in.
And I'm very grateful too that Milk Crate was able to transition online, so we've kept in touch with our community. But I just had a revelation that this idea even of the 5 kilometre restriction, I saw it as a spotlight, and I thought, okay, if this is my spotlight, how do I love my neighbour? Because literally that's the only person I can be in contact with, and I'm new to the area, so whenever I move to a new place, I usually go and join a church community just because it's a great way to meet people. And I joined a church, Bondi Anglican, and just went once to a service, but it was enough contact for those people to reach out to me during lockdown and say, hey, do you want to go for a walk? Hey, I know you're new, if you ever want someone to chat to. And so I felt really loved and encouraged, and had great company through lockdown because of that connection with the church. I personally just think it's an absolute miracle that there are vaccines. I felt great peace about going to get my vaccine. I felt quite moved when I received it. It was an absolute privilege to have this layer of protection, not just for me, but for my community. I mean, I love the story of Louis Pasteur when I was a kid about like vaccines for rabies and all these things. I just think it's an absolute miracle that the whole world was working on this one thing and was able to deliver it, and the whole world is waiting to receive it, and we were able to receive it for free, which I just think is amazing. I think in 6 months' time I've actually got a few projects lined up, and Sydney's really sort of opened up to me and blossomed. Even though we've been in lockdown, it's really embraced me, and there's been lots of opportunities. So I think I'll be directing lots of workshops. I think I'll be doing some writing on my own projects, and I think I'll be even more embedded in this community here in Bondi.